Hi everyone. So this is again Dr. Ridwan Girik. Welcome to week one materials. What I will do in the entire 7 week long classes, for each chapter, I would like to record a video and release it so that we can touch base with it. What I will do in those videos is I am going to handpick some of the concepts or key points or challenging points to understand for each chapter. So whenever you're reading your chapter materials, textbook materials, you will see that some of the concepts are really a little bit like a little bit more difficult to get your head wrapped around it. So for those kind of materials, I am planning to record some short videos and then hopefully release them under your modules for each week. So here we go. Let's start with chapter one. Chapter one is Introduction to Operations Management and Supply Chain Management. I picked some of the key topics so that we can talk more about it, and then you can hopefully hear my perspective on the topic. So if you have any questions, go ahead and fill out a question in the course questions and answer discussion forum portal. I will be continuously checking that portal, and hopefully, here's my motto: if you have a question, if you have difficulty understanding a concept, do a favor to your fellow students so that ask that question so that I can understand that it's an issue, and I'll be happy to respond that as fast as I can. So let's start with the most interesting, one of the first important topics that we should be aware of when it comes to operations management and supply chain management. We should be very familiar with the product that a company is offering to its customers. And that product can be a tangible product. If that's tangible, then we call it goods, right? And if it is non-tangible, then we call it services. So a company might be a combination of both too, but that boils down to the most fundamental difference between the good products that the company is offering boils down to whether it's a goods or it's a service company. Or some people call goods company is manufacturing company, and service company again a service company, right? Can we give an example to these? Apple, for example, is producing iPhones, right? MacBooks, iMacs, and tablets. So Apple definitely is a good company. And for example, tax season is coming up. If you're using TurboTax or HR Block for your tax operations, then definitely you're getting a service for getting a consulting as a product delivered by those companies. So that those companies are service companies for sure. So this table does a great job explaining what are some of the key differences between a service company and a manufacturing company. One of the key differences is that goods are tangible physical entities, services are not. Goods can be stored and services cannot be stored. So this is going to be very important when we talk about inventory management and towards the end of this class, because although it's a service company, it might be a service company, it may not store the fundamental goods that they are providing for their customers. Still, service company is storing something, right? Or maybe, for example, when we talk about TurboTax, they must be storing some of the codes that they write. They must be storing some of the data center physical hard drives that they use. They must be storing, for example, papers, office supplies in their inventory, right? So operations management concepts are going to be valid for goods and services. But still, the way that we handle some of the operations in service companies and product or goods companies, we have to be very careful, okay? So what is really supply chain management? So you will hear a lot of descriptions. So you will read your textbook. Hopefully you will watch the videos, right, that I posted. And I would like you to hear it from my perspective as well. So from my perspective, a supply chain management for a company starts at the very beginning here with the raw materials. Again, for a service company, what's a raw material? A raw material might be, again, if the company is writing software, raw material would be just pieces or chunks of codes that they already wrote before or someone else wrote on the internet and they try to use it, right? And for example, Zara is an apparel company, and the raw material for them would mean like fabrics or even like um, if you go way back, so it can be like, farming companies providing the raw materials for Zara to make them the fabric or strings that they will be using in their operations. Everything, so supply chain in a nutshell would be collection of all the activities converting raw materials into finished goods, right? Collection of all the activities starting from raw materials all the way into final products or services that your customers are willing to pay for. So that includes buying things, right? That includes making things. That includes moving things around, right? That includes selling things, right? That includes much more, because after you sell your products and goods and services, you will still have to take care of your customers in a very nice way. So you have to have a feedback loop that's coming from your customers here back into your supply chain as well, right? Um, that is a very key understanding of today's supply chain management. You have to incorporate that, backwards feedback loop, so that you would be offering much better services for your customers. Okay, after making that description, let's move on. Well, around 2/3 of the current companies are global companies, meaning that one of their operations is taking place in a different country that they are established in. For example, Walmart is a global company because they are getting a lot of different materials from different companies. Apple is for sure is a global company, right? Netflix is a global company because they do have foreign production activities that are taking places in different companies. Like La Casa de Papel is one of my favorite TV shows that they took place in Spain. A producer in Spain shot that TV series and then sold it to Netflix, and Netflix is showing marketing that or selling that TV series in the entire world, right? Um, Only maybe your local like bagel store might not be a global company, right? So XYZ bagel store in Lakeland or wherever you live these days may not be a global company, but I'm pretty sure they are using the products of a company established it somewhere else in the different part of the world. But it doesn't make them a global company, because they just probably purchase their goods from Costco or Restaurant Depot. It doesn't make them a global company, but they're open to globalization for sure. So how do we make sure that we run an efficient supply chain management in this global economy is a key thing. So companies who are actually running an integrated supply chain management in this global economy are the ones who are reacting to the changes in this environment wisely and very efficient way. And those are the ones who are going to be successful at the end. So we have to think about supply chain management in the framework of the entire globe. When you're establishing your businesses, or when you are analyzing a business that's already established, you should not really limit your attention to the rules and the regulations of your country only, but you should be thinking globally. That is the key for success. Um, in that sense, there are a couple concepts that we should get familiar with. So what is offshoring? You probably heard this on the news, like offshore accounts. Like they already, they usually speak about, bank accounts established in a different country as offshore bank account. So similar concept here. So if a company is outsourcing, I will touch base with outsourcing concept later on, is having a deal with a different company in a different country to have the operations done, then that company is offshoring their operations. Like, for example, Apple is not producing any iPhones, right? All iPhones are being produced in China. All the designs, all the technological background are produced by Apple, but Apple is not really physically producing any product. So Apple is actually offshoring its manufacturing of its iPhone in China, right? You can think about other if you, for example, Apple is offshoring some of their chips, they used to have a deal with AMD and Intel chip producers. Then we could say that they are outsourcing their operations into different companies because Intel and AMD, those are established in the United States. So it wouldn't be offshoring, it would be outsourcing, which will bring us next to outsourcing, right? So outsourcing, regardless of the country of origin, if you're outsourcing any of your operations to a different company, then you are actually outsourcing it, right? So outsourcing is more a general concept than offshoring. So offshoring, if you like to call it offshoring, it has to be done in a different country, right? So we already talked about integrated supply chain management. It's much more difficult than just thinking locally, right? When you talk about, when you think about global conditions, then you think about like different languages, different cultures, different rules and regulations, different climates, different geopolitical conditions, different political conditions. So you have to account for all those challenges when you are designing your supply chain management. That's why this discipline is open to many different skills. But the number one is the communication. Number one is making sure that you can communicate your ideas, your dreams, and your plans with different people. Um, Okay, so let's take a look at the next one. I would like to talk very basics about very basics supply chain components. So this is a very generic flow. Let's assume that we are running this primary company. It can be any company. It can be like Apple, iPhone, or Walmart, whatever you say. So what really happens is that, let's say this is Zara. Zara, you're going to watch a quick case study in module 1 about Zara. Let's assume that this company is Zara. And Zara usually, this operation, every other operations that are coming into Zara, we call them inbound operations, right? So everything that the Zara sells towards the customer, let's say that the customer is somewhere here, right? Those are called outbound operations. So for example, Zara's first tier suppliers would be the companies providing them the fabric, or the companies providing them the paint, right? Or the companies providing them some consulting work for the designers, right? So the first suppliers are the companies who are producing Zara the immediate goods or needs or the raw materials that they are in need to make their operations running here in the primary company stage. Okay, usually there's a storage in between Zara and the first tier suppliers. And guess what? Their suppliers and suppliers are actually some of the companies providing them the raw materials, finished goods, and the services that they would need. Right? You can create a third tier here, right? You can create a third tier set of companies providing Zara's suppliers, other goods and physical services and operations. And usually we do have a storage in between these two tiers. Okay, if you look at the outbound, we usually, after we, for example, Zara finish producing goods and services, apparels, like they store them in a warehouse or distribution center, and then they sell them to wholesalers like or the retailers meaning like Macy's, and Zara has their own retailer operations, their own stores, right? And some of the wholesalers who would like to pick goods from Zara to sell them in their store, like Costco, like BJ's, and then hopefully those goods are distributed to their final customers. So what's going on here? So towards starting from at the very beginning, supplier to customer, right? This phase, the flow is usually materials, right? Or products or services. For example, the flow from customers to this side are usually money, like information, right? And feedback. So supply chain, one of the main operations would be to be able to handle or organize or monitor these flows of materials, flows of products and services, from raw materials to customers, and from customers to third tier suppliers. You have to be able to also handle money, information, and feedback flow. Okay, we will have a very similar experiential learning activity in week 2. And I will get into that details in later in week 2, but it is going to be about identifying a company, making sure that we can list out their inbound and outbound operations. Okay, we already talked about those components. So you do make sure that you watch Zara's case study. It's just a 2 minutes video under module 1. Um, uh, and make sure that, again, a quick reminder, what is supply chain management? Supply chain management is the collection of all the activities starting from converting raw materials into final goods, right? All the elements that are in between raw materials and final goods. That includes 4 walls of supply chain, again, buying things, making things, moving things, and selling things. Maybe we can add 1 more wall that will be collecting the feedback from customer and incorporating it into your supply chain. Okay, so that will be the end of this video, and please let me know if you have any questions about chapter 1.